Bonjour, bonsoir, dear friends. Welcome to JCB Live on this fabulous Friday. Sunny, windy, exciting in Napa Valley because we have two extraordinary guests. A few days ago, they've organized one of the most amazing gatherings in the heart of Napa Valley, one of the most historical that changed the face of history for American wines, French wines, and the friendship of the two, and Napa as a destination as well as America. One is the lady who organized it all. She has a great company, Cultured Vine, and her name is Angela Duerr. Beautiful German name. She's strict and disciplined. She brings pleasure and happiness with her fabulous daughter to any event you want to organize in the heart of Napa. And she was the brilliant mind behind the Judgment of Paris. The other man you all know, he's a legend in the world of wine. He was one of the first top 10 American to get the famous title Masters of Wine. So he really created this amazing trend of recognition. He's a brain, he's a mind, he's a historian, he teaches. His name is Peter Marks. You all know him. So to welcome them both here in our fabulous JCB Lounge in Yountville, a little glass of bubble, of course. Voilà. Bonjour.
Bonjour.
Bonsoir.
Bonsoir, monsieur. Merci beaucoup.
Oh, c'est un plaisir. So, dear friends, I'm trembling of excitement because we are tasting a wine that brings us together, a crémant, almost a crémant de Dorset that Stephen Spurrier planted. So, welcome.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.
So, cheers.
Cheers.
We look at each other in the eyes.
Nice.
We know the rules.
We do.
It's 7 years of bad what?
Oh,
Bad emotions.
bad emotions.
Cheers.
Cheers.
So this is on the spur of the moment because Angela put us together thanks to an amazing event. We're going to talk about what they do and how amazing they are for the wine country of America. But very quickly, Judgment of Napa, how did that come about?
I'd like to just invite you to Charles Krug, our family estate.
So have a great tasting, congratulations. And to Stephen.
Big surprise, ladies and gentlemen. Lewin Estate from Margaret River, Western Australia.
The winning wine is OMG. Congratulations, Tor. That is the Judgment of Napa.
Angela, tell us.
Well, what I like to do is discover new things for guests coming to Napa. And I thought, how cool would it be to put the best of Napa up against the best in the world? And I didn't think it was possible, but I wrote to Stephen to tell him what I was going to be doing. I wrote to George Tabor to see if I can purchase some books and get him to sign them. And the two gentlemen wrote back to me within 24 hours, and Stephen was so excited. He said, let's do an event, and pretty soon I had an event on my hands that was scheduled. This conversation took place July 2019, and we scheduled the event for May 2020.
Amazing. Angela, a lady entrepreneur in the wine country, we'll talk about it because it's a mother-daughter team. Amazing team. Peter, tell us, who is Stephen and who is George? Because
Stephen
it's one
Spurrier.
thing to talk
Yeah,
about those
right.
names, but who are they?
Well, Stephen Spurrier, I think his name is worldwide known, but he was the person along with his partner, Patricia Gallagher, who was at our event last week. She basically came up with the idea, she likes to say, but she and Stephen operated the Académie du Vin wine library and wine shop in Paris, and they came up with this anniversary tasting in 1976 to kind of recognize how California is making some really nice wines, and they thought they'd throw in a few French wines, and they invited some famous wine critics from France, and everybody was surprised in the end.
And you're wearing your French shirt. I love it.
Yeah, thank you.
Peter is always so thoughtful. It's Façonnable, one of the iconic French brands, and blue, gray,
Red.
and red.
Yeah.
Gray because we were sad after the tasting.
Yes.
It was a gray, cloudy day in Paris.
That's true.
Why was it a gray, cloudy day?
Oh my gosh! George Tabor, who is the just happened to show up. He's the columnist for Time magazine, and he wrote this piece, just a few paragraphs, called it "The Judgment of Paris," and it was like the shot heard around the world because the French wines lost both the California flight and the Chardonnay flight and the Cabernet Sauvignon flight. So the Chardonnay, Chateau Montelena, beat the best of some of the top Premier Cru and Grand Cru Burgundies, and then the Stag's Leap Wine Cellars, Stag's Leap Vineyard Cabernet Sauvignon beat the likes of Mouton Rothschild and Chateau Montrose, Chateau Les Valascas. It was a great day for America.
Oh, for sure. So we should have another toast
Yes,
for
we-
America on this
Here.
one.
Yay.
Because those
Cheers.
moments really
Cheers.
changed the world.
It did.
And what did it do, Peter, for you who study wine, who is born, with wine in your mouth, and you'll go back to your history?
Not quite, but I did have, it's funny you mentioned that because I did have a father who was interested in wines. And what struck me was the fact that he knew the Taylors, some of the original owners of My Calmas Vineyard up in Mount Veeder. And he also knew the people at Chalone Vineyard. And both of those wines were in the tasting. And while they didn't do well at the original Judgment of Paris, they kind of, placed in the middle. And I remember thinking, I've tasted those two wines, and they're like in the same category as these French wines. I thought, this is something I'm going to start to learn more about. And I was just graduated at that point from UC Davis. I majored in nutrition and food service management, but my roommate became a winemaker, and I studied wine while I was at Davis as a hobby. And then I worked in the restaurant field for 5 years, and then I had enough. I was ready to jump into wine because by that time, the Judgment of Paris had made wine more of our culture as it is today. And that's something I wanted to pursue as a career.
And as a child, did you feel that wine could become something very unique? Did you feel that it?
I didn't. I knew it was unique, but for us, it was just part of the family having dinner together. It was nothing, we didn't put it on a pedestal, and
Yes.
nor should it be. And I felt that, wine might catch on, but, a lot of people back when I grew up were drinking cocktails, the martini, the gin and tonics, the Manhattans. That's what my parents drank if they weren't drinking wine. And I thought that was kind of where the American palate would be.
And as we on this, how did you decide, for God's sake, to study the most lethal ever degree in wine? I call it a degree because it takes 4 to 6 to 8 years or 10 years sometimes to really do the Master of Wine, which is the highest of the highest. What made you want to do this?
I like a challenge, and I was a competitive runner in college, and I studied wine because I loved learning. And one of the things I found out was one of the first Americans to pass, Joel Butler, who was a friend of mine. He showed me this exam, and I took a look at it, and I go, I could never do that. But a couple years after, they started a education seminar, and I attended. And the more you know, the more you want to know. You know how that is about wine. And wine never, it's never the same every year. It's different. There's a new vintage. There's a new winery. So much to learn. And I get bored very easily. So I wanted to pursue something that would excite me and keep me learning for the rest of my life. Because if you keep learning, you don't get old.
That's right. And that's what you believe as well, Angela.
Absolutely.
You keep doing.
Yeah.
So how is it to be a woman entrepreneur?
I started so young
Yeah.
at conquering challenges and creating new opportunities that it seems natural. Certainly with the Judgment of Napa and trying to put on an event before a pandemic and then the pandemic, and then to keep moving it around the country 3 different times was certainly challenging. But in the end, it's perseverance and resilience.
And when you say you've done it all this time, we have a lot of friends, ladies and men, who are thinking now, maybe I should start my own business. Maybe I should become an entrepreneur. Maybe I want to be in the wine world, and it's not easy. It's supposedly this male world, which is not the case anymore, but still. So how do you get to start your own business, and how do you go for it?
Well, it sort of found me, but you do something you love and you'll never work a day in your life, which is something that I've always told my daughter. And coming from about 20 plus years in the finance world, Danelle was actually going to college, and I told her that. And as I was driving away, I thought, it's about time I took my own advice. So I did that. And I collected wine. I loved wine. I moved to St. Helena, and I didn't know a soul in town, not one.
And you moved from which town?
Actually was just in the Sierra foothills in El Dorado Hills. But having been a corporate relo, I've lived all over this country.
That's right.
And so the first thing I did was when you come to wine country, you have to network. And so I joined the Bocce League, and I was playing on Monday nights, and there was Herb Lamb, God rest his soul, and the greats of Napa Valley, and I had to pinch myself. When I walked into Sunshine Market, and there were my favorite people and winemakers that were on the bottles. And from there, I just started doing consulting and sales, which of course is what I did for large banks. And sort of the rest is history. Yeah. And then as I met more and more people, they kind of gravitate toward good people like they do to you, Jean-Charles.
Thank you.
And thus was the creation of Cultured Vine. They wanted to know where I could go.
Yeah.
We've been here so many times. What else can I do? What else can I see? And I built a business around that, which I love.
That's so exciting. Congratulations, and thank you for sharing as well this amazing story, because I think being part of the community is what makes, whether we're in Napa, Sonoma, Bordeaux, Burgundy, Champagne, the community is so powerful. And this is what you both have done. And for you, Peter, how was it as well? Restaurant for 5 years, and then you entered the wine world per se.
I did. Retail. I spent about 20 years in retail. And moved to Napa actually right at the beginning of the year 2000. And I started working at wine.com. It was a different iteration than it is today. That was under the ownership of Peter Granoff and
That's right.
his brother-in-law. And so I came up here with the idea of stock options, and 14 months later, I'm out of a job. So
yeah. Well, that's
that's
thank you for that vulnerability and sharing, because we all think it's always, this blue lagoon where everything is success. It's not easy.
Right. And my wife was, practically in tears here, moved her from the Bay Area to this being a country bumpkin. And she missed her friends. But she loves it now. She'll never go anywhere.
Well, you bounce back amazing.
Yeah, you did.
Well, obviously.
Yeah.
But I remember meeting you when you were at, when it was not even called wine.com.
Oh, yes. Oh, the Draeger's Day.
That's
yes,
it.
Yeah. I spent a good part of my career at Draeger's Markets, one of the finest gourmet upscale supermarkets in the Bay Area. And I was there for 15 years.
Which is amazing, is Peter has this fabulous balance of understanding food and the ingredients. You study nutrition, which don't you think it makes a whole difference to understand the gift of God here, the liquid?
It does. And, there's a lot of synergy when you talk about food and taste with wine. That's how I got into wine, because I love to cook and experiment with different dishes and spices, and then chasing wine. You can make a dish, but you generally make it pretty much the same. You might make some changes along the ways. But with wine, every year is different, and that's what I love because it's so fascinating, and there's just so much to know.
So Peter will put you on the spot, or maybe Angela for the bubbles.
Okay.
Because then we have some old
Yes.
historical Burgundies. So
I'm
maybe,
looking at that. Yes.
Angela, what does this wine make you feel? I could see your beautiful eyes. I could see those gorgeous lips, that fabulous smile.
Thank you.
What does it make you feel?
I
Burgundy, dear friends, just to let you know, this is our 2012 vintage, number 8, 50% Chardonnay, 50% Pinot Noir, Côte de Beaune, Côte de Nuit, aged in barrels, crude techniques, not as long, 36 months on each, and here it is. Tell us.
Well,
more.
sparkling or champagne is my wine of choice.
Thank you.
Often Danelle, sitting just beyond the camera, will tell you how often it's opened at my house, which is pretty much daily. So it's my favorite.
So what does this one makes you feel?
Oh, it makes me feel exciting and refreshed, and it's amazing on the palate. This actually has an amazing finish
Thank
for a
you.
great sparkling.
Peter, any thoughts on this? Because you're an expert of champagne, of course.
Makes me happy.
Yes, that's right. Oh, cheers to that.
Cheers to that.
So something to share maybe by one of you. We just were together. You organized this magnificent event and powerful event and meaningful event and very thoughtful event. We tasted a sparkling to start with, Stephen Spurrier's sparkling.
Right.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about it? Because it's a Crémant as well, and he called it Crémant of Dorset.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, well, Stephen Spurrier, moved to Dorset, started a vineyard, and called it Bride Valley with his wife. And we were very fortunate to be able to taste one of his wines. And wasn't it fantastic?
Oh, fantastic.
Blanc de Blanc it was, and
Blanc
we
de Blanc.
out of it. Can you believe every drop was drank, every bubble were inhaled,
Yeah.
and we don't have any left.
Yeah.
Yep.
But it's a great honor because I'd love to ask you both as great American leaders, what do you think about eventually in the future drinking English? It's Monty Python and my favorite, you know who I'm talking about, Gold Member.
Yeah.
I mean, sparkling wine. Who would have thought?
Right.
Do you feel there's a chance?
I definitely feel there's a chance. I mean, you don't have to go back only 30, 40 years when people put their place, the French champagne houses put their foothold here in Napa.
Yeah.
And now they're doing the same in England. And especially if there is climate change, their conditions are going to be conducive even more so in England to make such great sparkling wines.
And why do you think so, Peter? You've studied climatology, you've studied terroir, geology, obviously climate change. What is making this happen in such a way?
Well, they have the cool climate. They have the limestone soils that are also found in the Champagne region. And they're also bringing the expertise in from people in Champagne. They're as consultants and advisors so that they're making headway very rapidly in producing some of the best sparkling wines compared to many in the world. They do tend to have, if you have to differentiate,
Sure.
a little bit more acidity. Most people say there's a certain tartness to the wines that you still find in Champagne, but even more so because it is cooler overall than Champagne. But as I said, if things become a little warmer, then where Champagne is today, England might be there in 15, 20 years from now.
That's right. And is sparkling, do you feel, you have it every day, as you said, your lovely daughter comes to your house for a little glass of bubble every day. We all love bubbles. Do you think America, as an example, is up for great growth, continuous growth on bubbles?
I would hope so. I find that it's not just for celebrating anymore.
Great.
It's for, it could be just a casual night at dinner. It could be you on your own, just on your patio and just reflecting on your day. It's easy to drink and it goes with everything. It goes with the best of times and it goes with an average day. So I think it's the easiest to go to out of any beverage. Outside of water. I'm going to say that.
I love that explanation. Peter, what's as I'm serving you Burgundy now.
Yes.
What's your view, Peter,
I-
on bubbles as well?
Absolutely. I think, one of the things that sparkling wines such as Prosecco and other types have given us is the opportunity to appreciate, as you said, sparkling wine on an everyday basis.
Yeah.
And we can produce great wines, sparkling wines all over the world now. And that is something that is a real treat and a tribute to the adventure of trying new things from different regions and recognizing the differences, appreciating them, but at the same time honoring the production of the traditional method, which makes such an amazing, complex sparkling wine.
So well
Like
said.
this one here.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's
Well, very fortunately, just to tell you a brief story, that Stephen, our good friend, would endorse, and he did when we bought Louis Bouillot. That's why we advise him, as you know, to do his own Crémant in England.
Yeah.
We bought Louis Bouillot, the oldest Crémant maker in Burgundy, from the 19th century, and we realized, God, in the cellars of Louis Bouillot are Clos Vougeot Sparkling, Meursault Sparkling, Bonne Marche, Chambertin, and all the Grand Cru, Premier Cru, and Fabulous Village. And is that possible? And it's the Grand Cru approach. And we decided to play again with it, with JCB, of course, and Louis Bouillot as well, and wanting to make rebellious wines in a way of a caliber that could be as good or better than Champagne, because let's never forget, we are 300 kilometers south, no need of Pinot Meunier, we Chardonnay pure, Pinot Noir pure, that's this wine.
Right.
And number 8 is yin and yang. But now, Angela, Judgment of Napa. So how did you put this together and give us the whole meaning and the purpose of this incredible event we just lived? And dear friends, to challenge our friends, we're having a Burgundy Chardonnay. It's going to be hard for me. My heart is in tears. Losing again Shadow Mantelina, but Beau and Heidi are great friends, so it's easier. The pill is easier to swallow.
Well, it's tough to take a little more than 2 years and describe it in a few moments. But again, how it started with was just an event to put the best of Napa wines, this time against the world, though, because, we've won a few times against the French. So
For sure.
let's open the doors.
I love it.
And not trump all over the Judgment of Paris. So that was the idea initially. And then I had met Stephen. Very quickly, soon into it, I learned that George Tabor had Alzheimer's and might not be able to make the trip. So Andrea flew, my team flew. We all went out to Florida and we met with him. And Stephen had a great message for George, which was read live on camera. So there was that signature moment.
Yes.
And then COVID hit. And Stephen says, you know what? Let's take this around the country. He's such a trooper. And so I scheduled it around the country, but in July, or June actually, he learned that he was ill.
Yeah.
And he said he wanted to schedule a call. He didn't want to send an email. So he let me know that he was ill. And so I sent a video crew from London to Dorset to get an interview with him and Andrea. So we got some of that great footage, again, that people saw at the Judgment of Napa. But when I saw that footage, Jean-Charles...
Which we will show tidbits of it, because Angela did a
Amazing.
fabulous summary of it. So, dear friends, stay till the end and you will see it.
So when I got that footage back, my heart just sank, and I knew how important art was to him. It was just important as wine. And then it was no longer about the event. It was about honoring him, Patricia, and George Tabor. So I contacted our state government as well as our Congressman, Mike Thompson, and worked on resolutions, clear to the end. Also, I contacted an artist. So an art monument would be erected in their honor, which folks got to see, at least a digital display. I just felt that it's part of Napa's time capsule. It was an important moment to us. And it's not just about the wines that won, but it was about the minds that put the event together. And that's what I wanted to honor at Judgment of Napa.
Well, this is a huge deal because you went beyond just purely planning a business series of events across the country and suddenly took depth and meanings. And dear friends, what Angela has put together will live forever in the history of this amazing region and our country, which is the United States. And I say our, you know. I'm a little bit here, so I say I. And my daughters are, in any case. They're half American, and I would tell you they act 90% American. So, you know, when they're nightclubs, they can act French later. But that's a very big deal. So, Angela, tell us what, you know, and you did in a way, but what really this judgment means to you personally, to your family, and to the wine world.
To me personally, it was so hard to put it together. We had the fires last year. We had so much stuff, and to be in the event business was the worst thing to be in during all these times.
Yes.
But then to pull it together, and I guess, you know, Maya Angelou says it best. I mean, people won't remember really what you said or what you did, but how it made them feel. Mm-hmm. So I felt at the event that everyone felt what I felt, and that was just pure emotion, pure emotional impact on everything that was going on. Everything was choreographed, and so many people told me they felt Stephen was in the room, because you know, on that screen he was larger than life.
For sure.
And we had the moments. We had him recorded, even when just weeks before his passing, I had some of his last words that everybody got to see. So, you know, what does it mean to me? It means the world, but it's more important on how it made everybody else feel, and how it made, you know, Patricia to feel to be queen for a week and a day. And she just told me she doesn't want to get off her throne. She's loving it. And such also nice words from the Tabor family as well.
Yes, of course.
That means the most.
Yeah. And magnificent. So Peter, what about for you? Because you were in the room, you were commenting the wines, you were tasting the wines. I mean, you choreographed the very technical side of the event, which Peter does magnificently well. You see those blue eyes, fiercely analyzing the wines and making them alive, whether you taste them or not. So Peter, what about for you?
Well, to me, the Judgment of Napa was a celebration. And I think Stephen, as you said, meant it to be not so much a competition, but a celebration of what the original Judgment of Paris did, was open everyone's eyes and ears and palates to the fact that great wines can be made in many parts of the world.
That's it.
France is still going to be at the top. I mean, I can't argue with that. I think it's the model that people look to and get their inspiration from. But other countries and regions have the ability and the confidence now to go out on their own and build their own reputation. And I think the tasting was meant to really celebrate some of the iconic wines from the world, not just California and not just France.
Very well said. It gave the world the confidence. Let's go as we toast.
Cheers.
So we've elected to bring to our two friends who are icons of the wine world here in the United States, one of the oldest, Burgundy. You know, I'm lucky to live on this monopole. You know, we're fortunate to be the only one who can enjoy it. As making it, not as drinking it, because we're here to share it. That's what wine is about. It's Clos du Prieuré, started, as you know, 9 centuries ago. So how does that make you feel?
We should have had this in a tasting.
Yeah.
Well, we don't want to win.
Yeah, we should do it again 5 years from now will be the 50th anniversary. We'll have another do at it. Yeah, no, this is fabulous. And what vintage is this?
Purposely very recent, dear friends. I wanted for Angela and Peter to really react to the iconic vintage. So we sang. Stephen said it because he tasted it in our cellars. We were together in 2018 November in Burgundy. We were together in 2019 early in the cellars of Burgundy. Jancis Robinson and all the fabulous English tasters, as well as all the American wine critiques, as being 1947. So when we think of 2018 in Burgundy, dear friends, we out of this wine already. So none of those wines anymore are for sale. That's the problem, at least from the winery. The world has heard that 2018 is the vintage of the last 60 years, probably, right? So what would you sell in 2018? Peter, you track it better than
that's
me.
what we selected for the tasting. You know, all the wines were 2018 vintage, and as Angela knows, there was a little bit of struggle to get the wines because of their limited availability, because of COVID and slow down in shipment and importation and such. But we pulled it off.
I was having heart attacks.
Yeah,
She,
for sure.
But then she had more champagne. She was fine.
Yeah,
So,
fine.
But we were really happy because we wanted to, as a homage to the Judgment of Paris, we wanted to include some of the original wines that were in the tasting. Obviously, the current vintage. So we had 3 of the original white Burgundies. We had the Leflèvre, Pouligny, Pucelles. We had the Duran, Bon Claude and Bouche.
Yeah.
And we had the Ramenais, Domaine Ramenais, Bâtard Montrachet.
Bâtard Montrachet, yeah.
Now, we couldn't get the Rouleau Merceau Charmes. Nowhere was it available. But we were able to get Dominique Lafond's Merceau Charmes. So we made a little substitution there. And then for the reds, we did, Mouton Rothschild, Montrose, Les Velascas. Again, part of that original tasting. So we had 3 of the original wines of both the Chardonnay and the Cabernet.
And Peter, explain to all of us how important it is to taste blind. And what we mean by blind is we obviously don't look at the labels.
Right.
Your own judgment is important, your own opinion. Judgment is always a strong word because we never judge in life, right? We just give an opinion. Explain us the process and how you do it yourself. Let's say you have a glass in front of you, you don't know what it is. Give us your master of wine, Peter Mark's phenomenal approach to wine.
Well, to answer that, I have to, what would the purpose of the tasting be? Is it for enjoyment or is it for some rigorous test and evaluation? And they're really 2 different things. So when I'm drinking wine, like I normally do, with a meal, with friends, I'll just totally enjoy it. And that's one of the things that's the best thing about wine is that it does bring so much pleasure and it tells a story from where it's from. And then if we're judging it for like a Master of Wine exam or Wine and Spirit Education Trust exam, which we teach at the Napa Valley Wine Academy, we're taking it through a systematic approach. We're looking at the aromas and the flavors and drawing a conclusion about what's the quality like. But a wine like this, I can just by smelling it, I can tell it's outstanding quality because it has all of those layers of aromas. Not even smelling, not even tasting it yet.
That's right.
I know this wine is going to be good. And with the French wines, there's that inimitable, that goût de terroir, that minerality, that whetstone that this wine has, along with that beautiful richness of fruit, a little bit of oak.
How much
and great balance.
Thank you. How much is your nose important versus your palate for you?
For the aromas and the so-called flavors, it's 95% for me. It's I spend more time on the nose and then on the palate, I'm really looking for structure. Looking for acidity, for body, for alcohol, things like that. Finish. Those are the things I pay attention. But for me, most of it's in the nose.
So, Peter, big question as well for the wine geeks out there. There's a big word we all wrestle with, and it's fun because it's like kickboxing or English boxing or what have you. The world fights on it. Minerality. What does it mean?
I
know that's the tough one.
Yeah, we can throw rocks at it, no pun intended. But I think it is something nobody knows where it comes from. Now, most of the research shows that it is probably from the yeast and how they ferment. But to me, the word minerality is simply when you smell or taste something that smells like something that comes from the earth. Yeah. And for white wines, a lot of times, especially Burgundy, it can be that whetstone, or if it's Chablis, it's that flintiness. When you're tasting red wines, a lot of times it's the forest floor or the earth, those kind of characteristics that kind of remind you of the earth. And I think great wines have that. I always feel that great wines have that because it adds an additional layer of complexity. Fruit is great to have. We all like fruit, but when you bring in the earth, the minerality, it's a match made in heaven.
Yeah, so well said. Here from the East, and I'm going to investigate that further. I'm baffled by the answer in a great way, so I'm going to research that. Peter,
a lot of work at UC Davis on that in regard to that. So
great. Well, thank you so much for sharing. Now, Angela, you meet thousands of people. You have a very successful event company. So how do we get people into the world of wine? Why do people like wine? Why do people even want to come here? And why should everybody come here? 4 questions in one.
First of all, we're beautiful Napa Valley, and wine is just one of those things that bring people together.
Yes.
So many times it could be, it might be a birthday celebration, or it's an anniversary, or all these other things. But more times than not, we find that it's guests and friendships coming together. And more so now with people coming out of COVID, they are super excited to get out there, and they might have been here 4 or 5 times before. They want to see something new and different, and that's what we spend our time doing. So behind the scenes, we're putting people in the vineyards with a winemaker in their homes, toasting something a little bit different, and also listening. I think that's the best skill. No matter what we do, there's always surprises. If anyone knows me well, there's going to be a surprise for you somewhere along the way, because we're going to have to exceed expectations every single time. And actually, at Judgment of Napa, we just did that. For people that thought they were in the know, there were surprises along the way where people's, jaws
So
dropped.
give us a hint of those surprises you did.
Oh, at Judgment of Napa?
Yes,
So
of course.
I think one of them was, well, first of all, I think one of them was your toast. Let's start there, Jean-Charles.
Wow, you're so kind.
Oh, it was true. It's true. That wasn't on the program. It wasn't announced. And when you got called up to do the toast with Stephen and the Bride Valley, I mean, everybody felt it that moment in the room. And you know what? You spoke to the family. You spoke as if he was in the room. And if that wasn't that was the first touching moment where people had to feel that. And thank you. Thank you for that.
It was a great honor. It brings tears to
Yeah.
my eyes, because I have so many great memories, and even though Stephen had an amazing life, as we all know, when it's a close friend departing, the times will never be the same. Even though you remind yourself of all those times, it's never always the same. So even though he's had 8 decades of phenomenal excitement and constantly growing, it's always emotional. But thank you. Angela gave me the option, do you want to be on the panel or maybe a toast? And I said, if you give me the choice, I love the panel. I tasted still the wine.
Yeah.
But, it was great.
Yeah. And then there were other surprises, because no one had seen all the footage I'd collected over the last 2 years. So I know that Dan Tabor, who wrote the article in Time Magazine, his son was there, and he saw an interview of his dad, and his dad's eyes welling up, and that made him cry. And he saw moments in his dad that were vulnerable, that he had never seen before. So those touching moments. And of course, then no one was expecting Paul Draper of Ridge, of course, in Montbello, to walk through the room, and Peter Mondavi grabbing his arm and walking him down. And I know standing ovation. It was incredible. It was incredible. So, but it's the surprises. I can't let everything out. So, and I can't tell you any of the surprises that people would get when they come here, because then they wouldn't be surprises.
That's it. So they got to call Cultured Wine. That's the company.
Cultured Vine with a V.
Yes, that's right. My accent. Thank you for telling me. Ich muss mehr Deutsch sein. So, Peter, when you've seen the last 3 decades in the wine world, what could you possibly mention to everyone as far as what has happened, and for you, who's been at the epicenter of this earthquake of seeing California?
Don't say that here.
That's right. I should be cautious. But share some exciting, moments you've lived. Some of the heydays of Peter Marks. We're very fortunate, dear friends, to have the master of wine himself, the man.
Well, as you said, I think living in Napa is a lot of people go to Burgundy and visit the great vineyards. That is like going to Mecca. Yeah. But for me, coming to Napa is another one.
So it's coming to the Vatican? It's coming. Because Mecca, I've been to Mecca many times. They don't serve me a lot of wine.
They don't, do you?
Maybe underground.
Yeah. But I think, to answer your question, the world of wine is growing exponentially. China, just take a look at what's going on in China. Or a friend of ours who's making wine and growing grapes in Wuhan. I mean, there are fascinating things happening in the world. And that's something that is exciting. Who knows what the future will hold for those things. But the fact is that wine is a living product. And by giving birth to new regions, it's just expanding the interests of wine and allowing people to have more opportunity to taste, which is great.
Well, so well said. Peter, you're an amazing teacher as well. You have a great sense of communication. You know, what excites you the most? I've attended many of your seminars, from the CIA to many others. See you speak about wine, and I love your style. So what makes you being so passionate about it, and how do people access your own seminars?
Yeah. One of the things I always do is I remember where I came from. And wine can be very intimidating for people. So to remember that it's just, first of all, it's only wine.
Yeah.
If I ever open up a wine shop, it's going to be called It's Only Wine. Meaning I'm not going to sell spirits or beers, but it's also just, let's remember it's just wine.
Yeah.
And wine is special because it is an agricultural product. It's brought from the earth. And I think that it's something that, for me, when I see somebody eyes light up, when that little light bulb goes off because they taste something and they connect with the land, with the producer, with the winemaker, what they went through in that particular year, and make that connection with how that wine tastes, that's like telling a great story. And I think that's what excites me, is when other people get excited. So sharing that passion is what makes me the happiest.
And what about you, Angela?
He said it so perfectly well.
Yes.
In that when their eyes light up and they said that was the most special trip we've ever taken to Napa Valley, or you introduced us to wines that we would have never heard about. That's the first thing I hear is, oh, we've never heard of these wines. And by design. I always tell folks, when you're at home and you have a local place to buy your wine, support locally and go to your guy on the corner. When you get to Napa, get to the producers that he may not even know, and go back and share a bottle with him or her. But that's what Napa's all about. And I didn't do my job if they didn't meet at least 10 new friends along the way that they get to go home and when they crack those bottles open, tell those stories. That's what it's all about.
Well, both of you said it so well. We just served a Napa Valley wine now.
That's exciting.
So we went Burgundy, and obviously Napa beats us, as we know. What inspires you both? Angela, what inspires you in life, besides your fabulous daughter?
I love making a difference in other people's lives, as corny as that sounds. It could be as simple as a
great.
Napa trip. For Judgment of Napa, it was making a difference for Stephen Spurrier, Patricia Gasto Gallagher, and George Tabor. But along the way, even in my corporate career, was always meeting somewhere where they are on their journey and taking them to bigger heights, or always paying it forward. And I know it sounds kind of corny and cranky, but that's what makes me feel good, and that's what drives me every day.
Yeah, I could see that. What about for you, Peter?
Not to be a copycat, but it's the same thing. I mean, I'd love to see other people understand wine, appreciate wine, to be able to share the love that we all have. And, as you know, being in retail doesn't pay a lot. Being a wine educator doesn't necessarily pay a lot. But to me, seeing other people take an interest, having that, wonderful trip, it's this, what I call the psychic paycheck. So that's how I get rewarded, is by having other people appreciate what you've done and bringing something new and exciting to them.
So what is your dream for both? And I'm wearing my dream shirt.
Uh-oh.
Dylan, can you see my powerful chest? I've been working out a lot for this moment. Dream. It's all about dream. So what is both your dream? Besides, maybe kissing each other before the end of the show. That could happen. Nobody will be jealous because we'll all be inspired.
Well, it's easy to see where we connected so easily from the front, because we're aligned in so many ways, and that's what made this journey, this odyssey, come to fruition. Honestly, my dream is just to always look forward and not look back, and to always have something to look forward to. And of course, with wine in my glass, that's kind of easy to do. And I would be remiss if I didn't say that, of course, I wish all the best, of course, for my daughter Danelle as well. So.
Yes, we love her, and she's irresistible, and she's with us.
She is.
And she has those gorgeous eyes. I like her much more with a glass of wine than a coffee. What about for you, Peter? What's your dream?
My dream is to continue to do what I do as well as I can, but at the same time, take a little step back.
Yes.
We all work hard, and I've worked hard for many years in this industry, and I want to see I want to see my children succeed. I want to enjoy their lives more than I've been doing in the last few years, and they have a great future too, and it's just so rewarding.
Are they in the wine world as well?
One of them is starting to get into the wine world as of just this past weekend. So we'll see where that goes.
Wonderful.
I'm not saying anything, but
Planting seeds.
my daughter's a nurse, and my other kid is
that's
working
great.
in the wine business starting.
And did you taste wines with your children?
Oh yeah,
all the
they
time?
love wine, and my daughter's a complete foodie as well. As you know, I used to be in the food business. I used to be a chef. My daughter can outcook me night and day. She's amazing. Yeah, and she does it just off the cuff without recipes.
So if it was your last dish, what would you cook for us? Let's say it's our last supper. Not that you will.
Probably
Hopefully
the
not.
same dish I fixed for my current wife when I had my first meal with her, when I invited her over, which actually was our second date. And fresh Atlantic salmon with a special basil sauce that my mother taught me how to make. Fresh green beans from the garden, sourdough French bread, a salad with local greens, and a bottle of champagne.
Ooh la 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 la!
See where
You
this
kept
is
it
going.
very ethereal.
And the rest is history.
What about you? If you were to cook for the ultimate moment, what would that dish be?
The ultimate moment. Well, I'm a little gifted in the Italian cuisine cooking.
Of course.
So, some people like to challenge me on a lasagna, but I make one with bechamel and savory crepes that pretty much I think is top of the list.
Bechamel and savory. Would that go with this wine?
Oh, yeah.
I believe so, especially with the ragu. It's usually a 3-day lasagna to make it. So, when people
We're
sometimes
coming.
ask, we're coming, yes. You bring the wine, and I'm cooking the lasagna. So,
I
yeah.
love it. Hey, shall we bring in Rapture? This is the first time ever, dear friends, you see in Rapture, brand new wine, entrancing, synergistic, and vibrational. Peter, what do you think of that? 2019 Napa Valley.
Wow, it's fantastic. It smells like Napa. I mean, it's got that beautiful black fruit, and it's got a little bit of, I have to say it, a little bit of the dark earth character, which is beautiful. But
Thank you.
it's a Napa Cabernet that is surprisingly drinkable for being so young, but I think that's got a long life ahead of it as well.
Thank you. So another wine that will show the French how we make wine in Napa Valley. So you both have been amazing. Off the cuff, a week after your big event. Last big statement. We always ask our guests, what big message would you have for the world? So maybe Angela, you want to start, or Peter, and you look at all our friends and, in any areas you want to go.
Well, one that's sort of at top of mind right now is to not wait. Don't pause anymore, and live. You don't know. I learned this past year with lives lost, friends lost, and what are we waiting for? So if it's coming to Napa Valley, fantastic. If it's a great bottle of wine you've been saving, open it and share it with friends, because that's the best way to enjoy a bottle of wine is with friends. Basically, just don't wait, don't pause.
I
Just
love
go.
it. Well, you're a goer on top of it. So I could actually expect the advice here. This is great. Well said.
Thank you.
Peter, what about you?
Well, ditto to what you just said, but I have to tip my hat to to Benjamin Franklin. Benjamin Franklin said, wine is constant proof that God loves us and loves to see us happy. And happy days to everyone. That's my message.
Ooh la la! Ooh la la!
Cheers.
I love it. Well, Angela, merci beaucoup. Dankeschön. Molto grazie. Peter, thank you. Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup. C'est très gentil.
Non, c'était vraiment un plaisir, un vrai plaisir. It was so fun. And dear friends, you know what Napa Valley brings is great people together with great ambitions, great visions, and great entrepreneurial spirits and following their passion. So let's be passionate. Cheers.
Cheers.